Hi, my name's Debbie and I'm with Festivals and Events Ontario. And I'd like to, first and foremost, thanks everyone for joining us for this session. Our guests today is Juliet Dunn and Bonnie Baker, who are from the Niagara Jazz Festival. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
So I just want to say that Juliet has been a member for many years and attended our conference and has been a great supporter of ours. And want to thank you for that, Juliet.
Absolutely.
And Bonnie is fairly new to the FEO family, but she was one of our volunteers last year. And look where she ended up with Juliet.
This is the last great thing I did before I never went anywhere again.
Yeah.
What a year.
Oh boy. Yeah, what a year indeed.
Yeah. So Juliet and Bonnie are going to be talking about how they pivoted pretty much on a dime from producing a live event into a virtual event. So Juliet, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll talk to Bonnie and then we'll move on.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, my name's Juliet Dunn. I'm the co-creator of the festival with my husband, Peter, who's a musician. We're both jazz musicians. And then I'm also the executive director and artistic producer. And my husband's the artistic consultant. And pretty much have dedicated my life to the festival over the past 7 years, going into year 8. And we have a presentation where we're going to tell you all about it. So that's all I'll say for now. And I'll turn the floor over to Bonnie.
I'm Bonnie Baker. I'm a little bit new to the events industry from this side of it. I've been attending lots of events my whole life. I found myself a little crossroads in my career a couple of years ago and decided to go back to school and hang out with the 20-somethings for a year and take a postgrad in event management. March should have been done last April, and in March, of course, everyone knows what happened. So we got a super different kind of education in event management than any class before us ever did. Lots of contingency and how to unravel an event. Yeah. But as my field placement during that year, I came to work with Juliet at the festival, where I had been attending as a patron for years. And I just kind of wouldn't leave.
Yay.
Yeah, it's an interesting time to come into the events industry, of course, but lots and lots of opportunity and learning. It's been super fascinating. There's no end to the creativity and innovation, and it's lots of bummer news for all of us, but there's lots of opportunity for some sort of different things to happen. So yeah, I came to the conference, the FEO conference, like I said, the last great thing I did before I never went anywhere again, and it was everyone had so much wind in their sails and it was really great, and I felt like I was at home and with my people, and now I'm just kind of watching my people do all of this interesting stuff. You know, we got slowed down, but we didn't get stopped. So yes, I've been enjoying helping Juliet and her team bring the festival to our audience in a very different way.
And we're so happy to have Bonnie on board.
Oh,
so happy. Yeah, so when I saw Bonnie's resume as the Niagara College intern, I was like, Bonnie Baker, isn't that woman who comes to all of our shows? And then I was like, oh my gosh, if it's her, this is fantastic, because huge jazz and blues fan. So we couldn't have anybody better with us. So yay. It's a good year for that. Yeah.
So before we move forward, I just want to say one other thing. Juliet, congratulations on winning the 2020 Making a Difference Award out of the It was the St. Catherine's Arts Council, right?
Yeah, the St. Catherine's Arts Awards through the City of St. Catherine's. Yeah. Thank you.
Congratulations on winning that this year.
Cheers. Yeah, what an honor. What an honor. So Bonnie's going to operate the slideshow, and I'm going to start off talking, and she's going to do the rest afterwards.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you the background of the festival, and then Bonnie's going to talk about the pivot. So,
sorry
excellent.
About that. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. Oh, somebody's outside to be let in, I think.
Yeah,
they'll take care of
Town of Pelham. Cool.
They will manage all of that.
Okay.
Is this working? Do you see
this?
Yes, okay.
We do. Yay. So staying connected to your audience during a pandemic. It's virtually possible. So you've met us. So I'm Juliet. And
We'll
this is
just skip
Bonnie.
ahead.
Yeah, we're good. So here's our mandate. We were voted Best New Festival in Ontario in 2007 by the FEO and rated in the top 100 festivals in Ontario for 2009 and 2020. The TD Niagara Jazz Festival is an exciting music festival dedicated to celebrating the art form of jazz throughout the year in the Niagara region, with a focus on a summer festival in July. Normally, the festival inspires, educates, and develops jazz audiences for generations to come, combining live jazz with an immersive Niagara experience, food, wine, culture, and natural wonders. So here's what we do, or what we did before the pandemic. Jazz in the Park, one of our big events, Simcoe Park in the heart of Niagara-on-the-Lake. A lot of people gathering, a lot of people dancing and having a great time. Jazz in the Vineyard, that's Jackson Triggs Winery. We've done many events in the beautiful wineries in and around the Niagara region, which is 12 municipalities. So not just Niagara-on-the-Lake, but St. Catharines, Fonthill, and the goal is to expand to all 12. Eventually, we just need an army to do that.
And I just asked, is it just me? Like, it's funny how quickly we adapt to our circumstances, right? So now when I see pictures like this of crowds, it gives me a funny feeling.
Yeah, it's not just you.
Yeah.
It's soul jazz in the vineyard. Yeah, it's that. So, can we go back to that one? Sorry, Bonnie. Yeah. Soul jazz in the vineyard. We did 4 of those. That's the Hair Wine Co. This woman, Cinnamon Jones from Rochester. So obviously, nobody's coming across now, but we had her up several times. And this woman would have these people in Niagara-on-the-Lake on their feet, and you'd look at the audience and you wouldn't expect this crowd to be up and dancing, and it was just so great to see. So that's Cinnamon Jones, Soul Jazz in the Vineyard. We have a youth program, Jazz for the Ages. So that was before, as you can see, all the kids are close together, but we're going to talk in a second about how we adapted. And World Music on the Beach, another one of our flagship events, which we've done 2 years with a live audience. As you can see, a lot of people gathering. Hugely influenced by the way, Debbie, I don't know if you knew this, but by TD Sunfest and Alfredo. I love that festival, and I emceed there for many years up until last year. And very, very inspired by what Alfredo does with world music. So that was one of our flagships, Music of a Charlie Brown Christmas, which we've done 5 times. And we started off small with a crowd of 80 in a small club scenario. And that grew to the Performing Arts Center, 800 seats in St. Catharines. And then we incorporated kids and choirs and lots of elements we can't do right now, but we will adapt that one as well. And then events that we've been doing throughout the season, and this is all in the past, Twilight Jazz series, we're in our 9th season of that. And then the In Your Own Backyard series, and this is when you'll see how we pivoted. We started the In Your Own Backyard series simply because we have a studio and somebody had a grand piano and they had nowhere to put it. And we said, sure, we'll babysit your grand piano, because my husband, Peter's a pianist. And I thought this grand piano would take over the studio, because it's not a huge studio, but I saw it in the corner of the studio and I went, oh my goodness, we could do like a very tight little group of people in here. It'd be great. And so I said, let's call it the In Your Own Backyard series, because it was on our property. So we started that in January of 2019. We did 4, and we used local musicians. So again, it was in your own backyard. John Sherwood, the owner of the piano, Doug Mundy, my husband, Peter, and Randy Sturtzinger. So all local Niagara musicians, and people loved it. 40 people at a time, and they bought passes. Some people bought passes, and we sold out. So we did it again for 4. We did another 2, all in 2019. And then the piano had to go. So we were very sad. And then not long ago, at the beginning of this year, I said, why don't we do guitar series? And so we started the guitar series, February, the first 2. March 9th, COVID was, it was in the news. And March 9th, we had this event. And then, as we all know, a few days later, it really exploded here in Canada. And then we got locked down. And so our artist there, I think we can go to the next slide and take a look at James Bryan. Yeah, then there was COVID. Oh, yikes. uh-oh. And then there was COVID. And so we transitioned. So James Bryan, this artist who's in Hamilton, I said to James at that time, so I'm probably talking to him now at about March 11th or 12th, saying, hey, James, not sure what's going to happen, but I don't think we're going to be having anybody gather in our studio. How would you feel about coming to do the event, just you in the studio and us filming you? And he said, sure, that would be fine. I said, no audience. He said, okay. But as you know, every day in March was just a new thing. And so it finally got to the point, he said, you know what, I'm not even comfortable coming to your studio at this point. And I said, no worries. So what we did was, because we really had no idea what we were doing. So I said to him, okay, how can we do this? I'm going to log into my Facebook account and go Facebook Live, and I'm going to introduce you. Then I'm going to log out, and then I'm going to give you my Facebook passwords and whatever, and you're going to log in as me and do it from your home. So if you go on our channel, you can actually see there's like James Bryan intro, and it's me, and then there's the James Bryan show. And that was an hour-and-a-half show, because that's what he was commissioned to do for the regular event. And we quickly found that we weren't going to do 1.5-hour shows. It was a bit too long, but it was really great. He engaged, in fact, 3,000 people, I think, right, Bonnie, tuned into that show, or 3.1.
Over time, not all at
over
once.
time.
Yeah.
No, but you know, that's more people than who see our actual events in vineyards, you know, because the most we've had in a vineyard is probably between 500 and 600. So that's interesting. So then we started to do some more shows. We transitioned to call it the Live Stream Love Jazz series, and we've done a lot of shows. We've done 44 of these ones. So it was Friday nights. And then what happened was this gentleman here in the middle, I think, yes, this gentleman here, Gabrielle, I started to reach out to different artists and lining them up to do these live streamed events. And Bonnie's going to talk to you about how we went from them logging into my Facebook to the new technology. She's going to take you through that in a second. But as I reached out to this gentleman here on the left, Gabriel Palacci, and thank you, Bonnie, he's from Argentina, and we met him at TD Sunfest, actually, and we brought him in for the festival before, and I thought, oh, I'm going to contact Gabriel. He's such a great artist, and he lived in Mexico. But when I contacted him, he'd been traveling, and he got stuck in Israel because of COVID. And I said, oh, well, where are you now? He says, I'm in Israel. And I said, oh, but could you have access to a piano? He said, sure, I can get a piano. He said, the problem is it's not mine. I'd have to go to their place, and your show that's at 7 p.m., it's 3 a.m. over here, and I can't play their piano at 3 a.m. And so that's how I decided, well, why don't we do a world series? Because he's both world music and jazz. I said, why don't we do a world music series, do it in the afternoon, so that in Europe and overseas, it's the evening, and over here, it's nice to have some world music in the afternoon. So he was one of our first ones, and this other band on the middle row on the far right, Floris Vindi, he's in Holland. And so they had their trio. And anyway, we've done a total of it. So that's our 9 world music events that we've done so far. During all of that, everybody was pretty low, as we all know, because it was so shocking. I mean, it still is, but it was really shocking at the beginning. And I really feel it was beginning of April. I thought, we don't know what's going to happen this summer. And one of our major events is a new event called Niagara Summer Mardi Gras. And last year we had 800 people at it, and there was a parade, and it was a lot of fun. And we realized with COVID, we didn't know what was going to happen. And I was getting pretty frustrated myself. So I said, why don't we just decide to do an event no matter what? Worst case scenario, we're in lockdown, so we do it online. If we're not in lockdown, we can have people out. But the other part of that was dealing with just mental health and seeing other people. We were all on a lot of Zoom calls at the time, right? With the FEO, there's Zoom calls. There were Zoom calls with Jazz Festivals of Canada. There were just so many different Zoom calls. And I remember one time being on a Zoom call. I think it was, it wasn't just festival producers and presenters. It was music producers and presenters. It was music labels, a lot of people in the music industry. And you could just hear how people were getting depressed. And this one gentleman, I forget his name, but I remember he said, I don't know about you guys, but like I wake up in the morning and I think it's a bad dream, and then I realize it's real, and I just want to go back to bed. And I was just hearing how depressed people were getting the people organizing the events, let alone all of the people, our audience. And that's when I thought, okay, why don't we do something that engages them? And the reason we decided to do Mardi Gras last year was just because we know that a lot of people don't like the word jazz, but if you say Mardi Gras, they think it's great. But a lot of people don't realize that the roots of jazz and New Orleans and all of that. So we thought, well, why don't we do sessions every Tuesday leading up to Mardi Gras? And so it gives people something to look forward to each week, in addition to the concerts, which were on the Fridays and the Sundays. And it's fun. So the first one, we got a Canadian, Chris Butcher, who's with the Heavyweights Brass Band, who's half American, living in New Orleans. We said, Chris, can you be our go-to guy in New Orleans? Let's set up some of the sessions with New Orleans peeps and some of the sessions with Canadians, and let's do these sessions. And so that's how that was born. So Chris did an introduction for the first one. The second one was a group that's based out in Nova Scotia, the Vaudevillian, that many of you probably have seen at festivals around Ontario. They're fantastic. So they did a musical spoons workshop. Second line dance steps. We had Austin. So this girl, and what I've always loved, and with my husband Peter, is with the festival, a lot of stuff just grows organically, kind of like somebody drops a piano in your backyard and you create a series. Well, this gal, when we were thinking about sessions, poor gal, she's my niece's friend. I've known her since she was about 2 years old. She lives in Vancouver. She was having a Mardi Gras themed wedding this year. Of course, it got canceled, but she's super creative, very artistic. And so I convinced her to do a session with mask making that everybody could do at home. So just a lot of fun stuff, cooking, cocktails. We have a local gentleman who's big into New Orleans culture and voodoo, and he has the Dragon Ritual drummers. So we had him in. Dr. Bryce did some funk and fashion, but that one turned into more about, that happened after Black Tuesday, and actually was on Black Tuesday, so we postponed it and did it the next day. And his actually turned out to be not just about fashion tips, but really about the culture, and that was a really interesting one. Anyways, gosh, I'm talking a lot. I'm getting into maybe too much detail. I don't know, but I get very excited, as you can see, about all of it. And now Mardi Gras happened on July 18th. And what happened was thank you, Bonnie. We decided, well, it's virtually possible to do the event. Unfortunately for us, the Monday of that week, we were still hoping that Ford would open it up. We were still in stage 2. And he didn't. That was the week, I think, Toronto, other places were opened up, but 3 places weren't. And Niagara was one of them. And we were pretty devastated, but the show must go on. So we put on this 9-hour or 8-hour live streamed event between New Orleans and Niagara. The Niagara bands were on our property. That's the first time we'd had any live bands. We'd built a stage in our backyard. And we had it all set up for social distancing, but of course we weren't allowed to have a crowd. And anyways, we went back and forth in between when the bands were changing. We'd be down in New Orleans. There was a parade, a live parade that we did here in Port Dalhousie. And then we had one down in New Orleans. We had cocktail demos and fun stuff. It was a very busy day, a lot of fun. And people joined in from home, and we partnered with a restaurant to do not just takeout, but takeout with cocktails. And so they could watch the cocktail demo and do that. So it was a lot of fun. And that's something we will enhance next year, because of course we were just kind of doing this all quite last minute with things changing daily. What's next, Bonnie? Oh, and then of course our youth program, which we also had to pivot. The word of the year. And so we did our youth program online, and interestingly, we probably had more eyes on the youth this year than we did the other years when we did it at a winery, and it was mainly the parents that would come out, you know. I think we had over 1,000 people view these youth finalists, and then the winners, we actually did a physical event on our property because we were allowed at that time, but we only brought out the parents. Oh, I'm just in a meeting.
Turns out young people are really great at social media.
Yes, they are. They are. I'm just in a meeting.
Yeah,
I'll be right.
we can really grew our audience for their event by engaging them in the process of promoting it. It was something a little different for them, I think, than they'd experienced, than youth in prior years had experienced. But it was interesting for us. We kind of learned from them and they learned from us. And
Yeah.
they really got a lot of people involved, all their friends and family. It was, yes, there's nothing better than bringing 15 kids on board to help with your social media. They are all
Absolutely.
over it.
Absolutely. And you know what was really touching too, right? At that youth event. So that was the first event that we actually had an audience, right? So Mardi Gras, we weren't allowed. So we just had, you know, our crew there. And that was the first event that had an audience, and I guess probably about 30 people socially distanced. But I remember one of the gals, Isabella, she just was so, almost in tears, you know, just to be able to perform for an audience. Like it was quite the experience for them. Yeah. And then we had 2 other shows this season. So we've only had 3 shows out of 70 with an audience. And Hungry for Hammond was a series that we'd introduced. It was supposed to start in April. Supposed to be April, May, June, July. And then we weren't sure if we were going to get the funding, and everything got postponed. We found out in August that we did get the funding from the Niagara region, which was great. But then, you know, the summer was running out. So we thought, why don't we do 2 double bills as opposed to 4 shows? We did the first one, and I think Bonnie has a visual for that, in our backyard. Right, so that's our house, and the stage is set up by, that's the studio where we had the In Your Own Backyard series, so that's 1,300 square feet, but within that, there's a studio of 500 square feet. And then the outdoor stage was set up along that back wall, and we had 4 tents. One was a media tent, spaced 6 feet apart. We had groups. We got a bar that was built around that little above ground pool, so we could put a duo 6 feet, another duo 6 feet, and then we had people up on the top deck. Oh, and then we had 2 duos along the fence. So everything was socially distanced. And by the way, we've had everybody who's replied to our survey so far, 100% people felt safe, which is huge. So we're so happy. We gave them paddles for drinks, so nobody mingled and went up to the bar. They'd hold up this sign that says, "Hello, it's the Sahara Desert over here." It means they're thirsty. And so my husband likes to do the Joan Rivers impression, which I'm not good at, but he always makes me laugh. So I got one of our students to make this nice little sign with the Sahara Desert, and people had a lot of fun. And I mean, that little paddle is actually, because I got it at the dollar store. It's actually a skull that we painted black. It's just like a Halloween thing from the dollar store, and we just kind of got creative, stuck it on there, and yeah, like, you know, they'd hold up their signs, and Bonnie had this great system. We'd put the money in they'd put the money in the envelope, and they'd check off what they wanted, and people felt safe, and we felt really, really good, because we don't want to be the place where COVID breaks out, right? You just don't want to be the place. And so that was the first one. And here's what happened for the second. That was September 13th. No, September 12th. October 3rd, we were supposed to do the second one. 2 things were happening. The weather forecast 2 weeks out said 13 degrees. And we were like, oh no, this is not going to be fun. And then Ford changed it to 25 people at a private residence, but still in a restaurant, you could do 50, or if you did an event, you could do 50. So there's the gray area, because yeah, we're an organization doing an event, but it's our home, and we have neighbors we want to keep happy. And with 5 days notice, I think it was, we decided on the Monday, we had a meeting. It was on the Tuesday, we decided to move it to White Oaks Resort and Spa. We went inside. This is a room that many people don't know about at White Oaks. It's called the Idea Loft, and they kind of do conferences, kind of like the levels go down in steps here. And then there's a stage, and we've always seen the stage and thought, oh, it would be really cool to do a jazz club type thing. So as you can see, the front row, we had 3 seats, then 3 empty, and then 3. And it was actually tricky. We had our volunteer who's actually here today, Darlene. It was Bonnie's idea to not sell tickets online like we usually do through Eventbrite, because of the new situation, to have a volunteer take calls and reassure people that we're doing it safely. And also, if it was a group of 4, we'd have to keep changing the floor plan to adapt. So it was a lot of work, but the 1 row in between was empty. So as you can see, I think we could do 35 max in this room that normally could have maybe 100. And then we had our film crew in there as well. And then Bonnie will pull up, there's the stage, and you might not be able to see it, but there's plexiglass hung between the pipe and drape, or the pipe. And so everybody was protected. And again, 100% people felt safe. And that was October 3rd. And yeah, what's next, Bonnie? I think I'm all talked out. Oh no, it's not over yet. So now another initiative that was started by Jazz Calgary, YYZ, was to get all of the jazz festivals, or almost all of the jazz festivals from across Canada, to do an online jazz festival. And that started on Sunday. And every day up until the 15th, 2 jazz festivals are presenting in their time zone from 7 to 8 p.m. And so tonight, I believe it's Victoria. Oh, I forget what the other one is tonight. Halifax and Victoria, and ours is here on the right. And we'll be presenting kind of a best of what we've been doing all year. And what a great initiative. All of these festivals are cross-promoting each other. So all of a sudden, instead of our audience, we've got 15 other jazz festival audiences who are hopefully tuning in. So this is a great way of being connected. And just speaking of like other being connected, was doing the world music, because we were connecting to another audience as well. So we had people tuning in from Paris, from all of the different places, from Israel. That was pretty cool too, to expand that way. And I'm going to let Bonnie jump in and add stuff, because I'm sure I've forgotten.
Is Bonnie going to be talking about technology?
Yes.
Yeah.
How you did? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Because that's the question I have.
Yeah. Oh, and then one of our events that you saw earlier with the reggae band, with the big crowds, used to be called World Music on the Beach, and now we've rebranded it. We keep pushing it, but we have to do it in our 2020 year because of funding, and I'm sure everybody gets that. So we're calling it Connected World, a Winter World Music Celebration virtually. And we have several bands lined up overseas. We'll have local bands here, and it'll be similar to our Mardi Gras experience. And each time we're just trying new things, and that's our next project. So we're going to be busy, and then we're planning for next year. But we'll talk about that at the very end. I'll let Bonnie get into how we did it.
Yeah. How did we do it? How did we do it? In a word, we use StreamYard. I don't know if anyone on our Zoom today is familiar with StreamYard, but it's a browser-based streaming studio. And it's what we were lucky to kind of find it fairly early in the game. As Juliet said, we started out like using our phones and trying to live stream in the moment to Facebook, which of course did not yield a very high quality product. But it was interesting. And so luckily we found this, and we've since looked at lots of other sort of competing products and are pretty happy that we landed where we did. StreamYard's been pretty great. So it is browser based. There's no software or even hardware, and it's kind of like Zoom in a way, but for presenting almost anything. Of course, we're using it for music, and we used it for all of our interactive workshops too. And so with StreamYard, for anyone who's not familiar with it, nobody goes to StreamYard. It's not like going to YouTube or going to Facebook. It's actually just a conduit. So through StreamYard, we stream out to our social media channels. And so for our demographic, our audience is primarily on Facebook and YouTube. For anybody who might be interested in something like this and who might be have a more prevalence of their audience in Instagram. Instagram does not allow any of these platforms to stream directly to Instagram. If you're going to go live on Instagram, you have to do it inside of Instagram. Interesting, since Instagram is owned by Facebook, and they have this kind of divergent idea of how they will allow people to use live streaming, but it works well for us and our demographic because they are mostly on Facebook and YouTube. You can also stream directly to LinkedIn, and you just set it all up inside your StreamYard account, and you do all of your streaming from inside of StreamYard, and it just goes out to your platforms that you choose. So some great things that we have found about StreamYard is it is super easy to learn. They are really focused on keeping it kind of simple and intuitive. You don't need a lot of technical experience to use it. It's really simple and intuitive for our guests, our artist guests. So we just send them out a hyperlink, sort of like a Zoom link, and they click it and they are there. So it's kind of set up like a studio. There's sort of the on-stage area and a backstage area. We can have I think up to 20 people backstage, and then put them on stage one at a time, two at a time. We can share a screen if we are going to share a video or an interview or some other sort of non-live content. You'll be familiar with this, like we're doing right now. We can have Juliet interviewing our musician on the side and their presentation in the middle. They can talk a little and then come off stage and just let the musician perform. There's a lot of sort of flexibility in the functionality there for how we move people on and off the virtual stage. It integrates, like I said, well with the platforms that we use most where we want to stream. They have excellent support. I think in the 8 months that we've been using them, we've seen them add so many great features. And honestly, we can be in the midst of a live stream, literally live, and run into some sort of a problem and just click on the help button sort of down in the corner, and they will appear and help you in the moment. They're super responsive and really, really excellent support. I could probably not recommend them more in that way. Always improving, adding new functionality, really responsive to their audience. Pretty robust suite of functions, and we find it pretty affordable. I think we started out on the free version. The free version, anyone can try. It has some limitations, like anything free. You'll get their branding on it in a little sort of corner logo. You can only stream up to 20 hours a month, which I think for many people is plenty. And you're limited to only being able to have 6 people on stage at once, which for a musical performance, or actually many kinds of performances, is more than enough. We do lots and lots and lots of streaming, so we do have a paid account, but it's free to try, and pretty great. So we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot. And since sort of the topic today is sort of staying connected, and with connectedness is engagement with the audience, and we've learned a lot about that. It's really, really hard. And I know this as a virtual audience member myself. It's super hard to get somebody to tune in and stick with you till the end. So when we see that in our metrics, that, we get people coming and going, and, yes, their friends and family will stick around, but for just sort of our organic audience, we have to be doing things. And people have so many choices for things to watch online. So we have to be sort of doing things to keep people engaged. And we've learned a lot about that. Just doing things that are engaging, saying people's names, engaging in the comments. One nice thing about StreamYard is that your integrated platform comments that are coming with the live stream display right there. So you can see them. You can actually pop them as right onto the screen and show them to the rest of the audience. Then your artist or you can respond to those in the moment. And that's what people really like. I found myself saying lately to artists that, in our experience, as much as we love your music and we have you here for your music, our audience actually wants to hear you talk. They want to hear you play, but they want to hear you talk. They can put on your CD or Spotify or whatever and hear your music. That people want to feel like they're getting to know you a little bit. They want to see what's behind you. We're all voyeurs into people's homes these days, seeing what kind of books are on their shelf and what kind of guitars are behind them. And we've had people have their kids walk through, their cat start meowing or their dog start barking, and actually our audience—
Pizza delivery.
Pizza, yes. Somebody just knocked on Juliet's door. Those kinds of things really make the experience real for the audience. And we have actually found that more than a professionally produced, no mistakes, no outtakes kind of performance, those are the things that really seem to resonate with the audience and keep them there. So funny enough, some of our artists get a little hung up on that. They don't like things that are not perfect, but we have to assure them that in our experience, that's actually what people like the most. There are no end to the variations of technical setups that people have. So we can get together with our artist a week ahead or however far ahead of their actual live performance and go through all the sound and tech checks, and they all have a completely different setup and different equipment. Some people are just using their phone, the camera and mic on their phone. That's it. Other people have huge elaborate setups with mixing boards and mics and lights, and we've worked with all of it. And honestly, Sometimes all the equipment in the world and all the most expensive stuff doesn't make the stream any better. We've had great performances done on an iPhone
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
nothing else in the room. And it's just a matter of getting in there and checking it all. It helps to do the checking at the same time of day. You can do all of this and spend time tweaking and getting things to work, and a half an hour going, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Get it all working. And then 3 days later, when you go live, it's not working. So it's just, you know, you got to kind of start all over again. And that is technology. So as long as technology is going to be a dominant feature of our lives in live music presentation, which it will be for some time, this will be what we face. And really it's a matter of getting out ahead of it. You know, if our live stream is at 7, we get backstage with our artist at 6 and we make sure everything's good. And if we're lucky, we get it all taken care of in 5-10 minutes and we can all go away and grab a refreshment and come back. But sometimes we spend that whole hour just getting everything working again. So practice, practice, check, check.
Yeah.
It's always nice for me. I see everything I consume on a screen these days, I see completely differently. I see it now as a live stream production and all the elements and things that are happening. And I just love it when I'm watching like the national news and I see a mistake and I see them all the time now. So it makes me feel a little better that perfect is is not always achievable. And that's okay. Like I was saying, audiences really do respond best to what is real and in the moment, and they love to be involved. I mean, when we start responding to comments online in real time with people, that's what keeps people around till the end, we find. Sponsorship, not to get into a whole like side topic, but obviously it's a big part of running a not-for-profit festival, and it looks very, very different for us now. Some of our traditional sponsors don't find as much value in this format, but it opens up a whole sort of different opportunity for some sponsors. We have sponsors now. If you'd asked Juliet a year ago, do you think you'll have a plexiglass sponsor or a hand sanitizer?
Or hand sanitizer.
I said, what? But we actually have a plexiglass and a hand sanitizer sponsor now. So,
yeah.
And it's just a matter of thinking about the platform and the audience. You know, we have this new expanded audience working with Jazz Festivals of Canada and presenting to all the Jazz Festival audiences across the country, working with our international artists and picking up their audiences overseas. Sometimes it's a different kind of opportunity for sponsors. So if we think like that, we've been able to sort of bring some new interesting sponsors on board, and we can offer them something a little different. Basically, you know, anything from a static slide to a live commercial, really. So lots of opportunity there. And yeah, the only thing that stays the same is change. So I put the word demonstration up there because, not to take away from, I know we're recording this Zoom session and we don't want to all just go away, but following this, if there's anybody who's interested in StreamYard and would like to hop backstage with us and see a demonstration, we can, once we finish our recording here, we'd be happy to do that. If you'd like to see a little bit about how it works. Functions and features, I think I talked about some of these things already, but it's super simple and intuitive. You schedule your live stream ahead through StreamYard. That pops it right out onto your social media channel as a scheduled live stream. People can then click on, you know, reminder or like or attending, yes, maybe no, and they get the reminders that they need. Then leading up to the event, it's easy to invite and prepare your guests. They don't need any software downloads, logins. You just send them a link and they click it and they're in. Very simple. Sometimes we run into a few problems with different browsers, but we've developed, experience has helped us develop a whole checklist of things that we now can sort of give to people, like, here's what works best, you know, use a Chrome browser if you can. In our experience, that works best, but it doesn't have a lot of limitations that way. Yeah, there's lots of fun stuff you can add, lots of little transition slides when you start thinking sort of creatively about what you can present. We've all become kind of like television producers now instead of event producers. And when you start thinking about what you can put there, it's interesting. It has definitely evolved. We've gone from just sort of putting up a static slide, for example, to thank our sponsor, to actually putting together little animated short movies for them, or sometimes bringing them in and talking to them live and letting them actually, you know, like maybe an exhibitor at a conference would do, have an opportunity to engage with people and talk about their product. We can do that for them too. Yeah, I talked about the troubleshooting and support and how, you know, how we can actually get it in real time. And one nice thing about StreamYard is that you can always download your recording afterwards. You don't have to go live in StreamYard. You can actually do a record only session. So set it all up, pre-record it, and then have it as a downloadable video, which you can then play later. I think we actually might do our national jazz presentation for this Friday for the co-jazz that way, rather than live in the moment. Record it as though it's live and then just play it on Friday. So just lots of functionality there. The future. Boy, it's not coming as fast and furious as it was in the spring and throughout the summer, but lately the news has been a little daunting. I think all of us are making plans on three levels parallel at this point. There's plan A, plan B, contingencies. It's all a little uncertain still. It's a little scary when you go right out on the edge and plan an event with an audience and sell tickets and not know, sometimes right up until the day ahead, if you will be able to let that audience in the door. So I'm sure I'm not telling anyone on this call anything that they don't already know, but one thing's for sure, I think that technology for us anyways, in a live music festival is definitely here to stay. We've all seen the statistics and the research that FEO has been great at sharing with us about consumer confidence and coming back out to events. We know that flipping a switch and saying it's okay to do it is not necessarily going to mean that people are going to come out in droves if they don't feel comfortable to do it. So I think for us, for the whole next year, it's definitely going to be hybrid, at least, kinds of experiences, small audiences, and live streaming. Almost everything that we do, I think, even if we do have a small audience there, just to try to keep our audience, keep them with us, keep them engaged, keep them involved, remember them, have them remember us, and to keep trying to find sort of innovative and interesting ways to keep it fresh and keep it different. Yeah, so.
Wonderful. That was a great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to open it up for anybody who has questions, and I have a couple too, but let's see where, first somebody asked if they could get the slide deck, and so that would be up to you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can send that out. Jenna, I can send that out with, tomorrow I'll be sending out a thank you and a link to this.
Yeah,
and
it's kind I'll just warn you, it's kind of a large file, but I will definitely send it along to you. Maybe I'll send you a link because it's kind of a big file.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, Deb, too, that we record all of these, so
yep.
You know, it will be in our library that people can watch it back and follow along as well.
Well, there's some questions too in the chat there.
Yes, so so it says, Cecilia says, great and insightful presentation. This is more of a question for Bonnie, but also Juliet, if she has any insight. Do you have advice or tips for students who are in your position about a year or two ago? I'm an arts management student and start seeking a field placement next year.
Great question. I mean, I think that there's kind of been, there was a tendency at first to see the whole pandemic as gloom and doom, but honestly, this glass might be half empty, but there's so much room in the glass. Like there's so much room for innovation here for anybody who's just a little creative. And as an arts student, I'm sure that's you, to find ways to fit in. Just find someone like Juliet and drive her nuts.
Come on.
Yeah, advice, I would say just keep your eyes open for the opportunity and don't be afraid to put up your hand and share your idea. I mean, sometimes I think, hopefully I'm not saying anything that's out of out of turn here, Juliet, but like to come into an organization. I mean, I came to this organization with a passion for what they're doing. But sometimes it's just being a fresh set of eyes. An established organization's been doing things the same way for a long time. It's maybe a little harder for them to step outside of what they're used to doing, and a fresh set of eyes can help, help uncover opportunities that might not be super obvious to someone who's not used to seeing what they're doing from an outsider's perspective. So yeah,
absolutely.
I don't know if that helps, but I hope so.
Mark, did you have anything? Because I saw you unmuted yourself, or you just...
Well, I was just probably playing around with buttons, but no, first of all, from a high level, congratulations for all the activities that you folks have embraced and done over the last several years. It's really quite impressive in scope and what it does to the jazz community. In other words, the artists and the music itself. So that's all fantastic, and you're to be commended for that. Just long story short, here in Markham, while we're typically a 1 weekend a year street festival, we had to pivot obviously very quickly as well, and still in the early stages of understanding and leveraging the technology as well as we can. So we're improving on that. We've gone to, as you may know, a one event a month series from fall to throughout the winter. And we find it difficult as, I not only as an administrator, but also as a jazz fan. I mean, I'm on dozens and dozens of, and probably hundreds now of streams since the spring. And it's tough to draw and to have the audience stick, right? I mean, our biggest events and, whether it's Jazz FM or whatever, seem to be pulling the same 50 or 60 people at best all the time. And as you guys mentioned, keeping our audience and maintaining our brand is one thing, but I'd like to see, I think we'd all like to see those numbers go up. I mean, I tune into some of the, bigger, not bigger physically, but bigger name rooms in New York City, and they're having trouble too. So it's not just us. So anyways, commend everything that you folks are doing, and keep doing a great job.
Thank you.
I'm interested in that, what was it called?
StreamYard?
StreamYard.
Yeah, we had, long story, we had gone to Facebook, and then we had heard this, threatening activity at Facebook, and we pivoted to YouTube quickly within a week or so. But that StreamYard seems interesting, and I'll definitely have a look. I'm not the most, I'm not leading the technical charge at our place, but we'll bring the information. We'll bring the information back. So
Mark, if there's something we can do to help, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We'd be happy to help.
Yeah.
I actually showed a group of students at the Harris School in Toronto, sort of brought them along for a couple of weeks and helped them produce a big fundraiser live karaoke thing that they've done in the past. And we have actually a past Niagara College student who did an internship with Juliet a couple of years ago, who now works at the Harris School, referred these students to me, and I showed them everything, and I'd be happy to help any way I can. Of course, the big elephant in the room here that we have not talked about is monetization.
Oh yes.
Not to start a whole new topic, but that's the challenge. That's where we need to head in the next year, is to figure out how, I think what you said is so true, Mark, about how we, like when you said hundreds of things, honestly, we have a lot of choices. Like, that's the thing. Like, we don't have to put on our pants anymore. We can consume all kinds of content. I mean, I sometimes have 5 things lined up on my calendar in one day that I am truly interested in, all of them, whether it's informational webinars. I mean, just the technology, keeping up with the technology as fast as it's rolling in, you know, and these kinds of things are so valuable. And there's, you know, a whole series of Black Lives Matter kind of material that's very interesting and important and relevant. And then the live music. I mean, we have a lot of choices, and that's kind of the challenge, is how do you rise above all those choices for your audience? And then, you know, the next big step is, will we ever be able to sell tickets again for this? And it's a really fine line between, you know, if how are you going to sell the cow if you're giving away the farm for free? Like, at some point, you know, do we stop leaving it up online? Is it more like a live event where it's happening right now, and if you weren't here, you missed it? You know, it's not online forever. And so all those kinds of questions.
Well, like the publishing industry, you know, gave a lot away for a long time, and are finding it difficult to put or let that genie back out of the bottle, or whatever way it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll just have to see. I mean, I think through this time, you know, we're all in this thing together at the end of the day for the sake of the music and the artists, at least hand on my heart, and be as collaborative as we can and open and share with each other and see how much we can you know, leverage and learn from each other. So this has been helpful.
Oh, great.
Hey, Bonnie,
Glad
can
to
you
hear that.
unshare the presentation?
Yes.
Been trying to capture your attention there.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there we are.
That's okay.
Is that better?
Yeah,
Okay,
it just gives us all the ability to see each other on the screen.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. I only saw
Yeah.
a few people.
Yeah.
I thought everybody had left.
Sorry about
I
that.
was like, oh, no. That's funny.
So does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask or comment? I do have a question. Did you find overall, did it have a positive or negative effect for you? An attendance, it seemed to be positive, because you said you reached people that you wouldn't have been able to reach. What's your perspective on that?
I'll jump in, and I'm sure Bonnie will add. For me personally, this whole pandemic situation and the whole pivoting, it's got a lot of silver linings. Yeah, I think for us being connected to other communities, like I said, the overseas, this relationship we built with New Orleans through Christopher Butcher is incredible. I mean, through Christopher and his connections down there, we managed to have the FEO Marsalis band orchestra, 17-piece orchestra. We couldn't have done that this season because that would have been 17 plane tickets, 17 hotel rooms. And it was just so amazing for us to kind of have that, make those connections with those musicians, the musicians overseas. Bonnie will probably jump in, but I think there was a lot of
like money in the bank for the future. Like, we have literally got a whole lot of people, for example, in New Orleans, who are just waiting now to come up here to the next, you know, next time we have a summer festival with Mardi Gras, you know, musicians and audience members. So, you know, it's not happening this year, but we're sort of cultivating new relationships with possible, you know, new audience members. And, you know, that's great for tourism, you know, if we can ever cross the border again. We hope to invite new in-person audience members. So that's, like I said, it's kind of like a deposit in the bank for the future right now, some of these seeds we're sowing.
Yeah. And
do you see a hybrid? Sorry.
Oh, yes. So, sorry, just, and then hold that thought, because hybrid, but just to add to that as well, like, I mean, I lived in Europe, so I had some friends in Europe that I managed to bring into this, but I'm also from my whole family's in Vancouver, and I have a brother-in-law who's connected to music. So we ended up featuring, I think, 4 or 5 pianists from musicians from Vancouver as well. So even across Canada, it was really fun to be able to bring in these musicians that we couldn't always, you know, be paying for transportation, etc. So yeah, it just opened up a lot of doors in that way. And then the hybrid question.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was just wondering, like, as you move forward, if we get back into real, like, face-to-face and group festivals, is there a way that you would find that, you know, you couldn't really afford to bring this artist from Israel to be at your event, but could you live stream it so that everybody gets to see them and put it on a big screen and stuff like that? Is that what you're thinking, or is it possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So with our world music event that's coming up, we're still kind of on the fence. Do we go completely virtual? Because we can still have our local music. It'll also depend what Ford decides and what phase we're at. But we could still have some of the live bands here, and we are live streaming in the other ones, right? So it might be a hybrid event or completely online, the one that we do in December. But I think that's definitely a possibility.
I can say something about that is that you want to look around your community for the right kind of venue for that. So we did do some kind of hybrid events in the summer, and I can tell you that if you have a live audience, you got to keep people in their seats. That's where we're at right now. But if they get up to go anywhere, I'll tell you where they will stop, and that is right in front of your camera. So there's a lot to manage with having a live audience present when you're trying to live stream, just from a technical perspective. Yeah, they will come and stand right in front of the camera. They're not aware they're doing it. It's just like some sort of magnetism. So we actually, for example, we're sort of casting around right now for the best recipe for this big holiday event we're doing in December. A shout out to those companies like X Events. We're looking at those kind of possibilities. But here in town, like, we have a venue where there's a big auditorium, but there's a balcony up top. So we're thinking, oh, we can film from the balcony and get up above all those people who want to stand in front of the camera. So it's just a matter of sort of seeing your venue through the eyes of your audience at home in front of their screen, and being able to sort of come up with the right recipe for getting it out to your live audience in the room and your audience at home. You can't leave them behind. It has to be, you almost have to have like two different streams going on. You have to be thinking of your audience at home if you want to keep them involved, and not just be totally focused on your audience that's in the room. It has to be interesting for the folks at home too.
For sure. And Bonnie, I'm going to ask Bonnie a question, because we went to see a drive-in performance, which was my first experience, and I think hers as well. But Bonnie, was that live streamed as well, or was it just live? It was Shakira Saida. It was amazing.
That was only a ticketed event.
Aha. Okay. Yeah. So they weren't live streaming it to people at home. That was interesting.
Very
cool.
Drive-in concert.
A lot of that doing. There's a lot of they're trying to drive-in things, sort of reverse parades, which is interesting. And yeah. Anything else from the floor? Dave?
Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought it up and I didn't have to. And I'm just going to go back to the monetization thing. Like, you guys have done some great things, and when you took over Instagram, the pictures and videos were fantastic, and catching a glimpse in, and I think you really got the handle on it. How has monetizing been? Like, are you close to breaking it even, or, is there a little bit of a revenue stream there?
Well, this year, the budget, really, it's the government that's really come through, right? I mean, we got a last minute grant from Factor, which was like a godsend, and the regular grants that we've gotten in the past, but I think about 160,000 in grants this year. However, sponsorship, which is usually about 100,000, like 35, right? So TD, usually we've gotten to a point with TD where we'd have 65. I was going for 85 this year, 25. They said, we're not touching anything to do with gatherings. And at that time, we were still hoping to have gatherings, right? So they gave us 25, which is great, but now to get back up to that 65 and go beyond is challenging. And then ticket sales, donations, in our case, we just got charitable status last December. So that's a new thing for us. But we would get donations and tips from musicians, and we signed up with Canada Helps or got, we've got that on our website. So, we do get donations when there's shows, but we definitely have to figure out a way to, maybe it's the first 10 minutes is free, and then you hook them in, and then maybe it's just $5 or $10 to keep watching, but there's going to have to be something.
Yeah,
right?
It's
StreamYard have a ticketing format? Does StreamYard allow ticketing? Or is it?
Not that we know.
Yeah, there's no paywall involved in StreamYard. So the funny thing about StreamYard that's kind of hard to get your head around until you see it and see how it works is that it's not a destination. Like nobody goes to StreamYard. So it's really
Right. They
just a
just
conduit, right?
They
It's
go to Facebook, right? Yeah.
right. So
or YouTube.
Yeah.
so the question really is there a paywall functionality on Facebook and or YouTube, which there
Right.
is.
Yeah.
But we've been a little reluctant to go there. It's super hard. You probably could do a whole session just on this, and we could have a big round table and see what everybody thinks, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
lot of questions. I mean, it's hard to know what price to come in at. You definitely don't want to alienate the people who've been coming along.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is put up a barrier and have them stop participating. But it's super tough to know. I think, like I alluded to earlier, it's kind of baby steps. It's like, stop leaving it up for free, start creating some buzz about this is happening now, be here now, and
Yeah.
sort of get that piece of it going, and bring it along bit by bit, more like a live event. And then I think we can look at possibly pay what you can is a good model I've seen used quite a bit as a bridge. And I think, like Mark was saying about the publishing industry and other industries we've seen, it's a matter of not lingering too long in any one model and getting people, it's like, if you don't keep it moving along, you may lose people along the way. But, staying still and not charging anything obviously is not the answer either. So
I've definitely noticed a trend in various events, large and small, a trend towards the pay model.
yeah.
Now, I don't know how successful it is, how many people are engaging and paying, but we're seeing a lot more pay options only than we were a couple of months ago.
I can say, as a consumer, I have paid for a number of things online. And this is funny. I'm just going to throw this out there. Like, my personal threshold, and I don't know what this is based in, you can judge me if you want, it's about $20. I'm happier if it's 8 or 10.
Yeah.
I'll pay $5 with no hesitation. So I'll tell you that as someone who consumes a lot of music and a lot of online content. $5.
Yeah, 5.
10, probably okay.
Yeah.
20, I'm going to have to to want to see it.
Yeah.
it's interesting.
I do a bit of the
5.
same. I mean, I was spending a lot of money going down. I live in Markham, but spending a lot of money going downtown to live events pre-COVID.
Right.
So couple of grand a year, all told,
Sure.
transportation, drinks,
That's
blah,
it.
blah, blah, if you just round it out. So I'm giving a bit of that, and probably a lot of that, to, the pay model.
Right.
Yet I'm being careful on, okay, where am I at this week and where am I at this month, and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
not to blow my brains out there, because, I have a passion for the music and the artist, and, it's only a click away. So I'd be giving them left, right, and center, but,
That's it. As a fan, I really want to support all the artists I love, but I
Yeah.
never, in the live world, I never had the opportunity to see all of them this month.
right.
That's the balance, I think. So, yeah.
Now, how about with the artists? Like, what's the artist reactions been like? Because I know in
Great question.
country music and pop and stuff like that, there's not a lot of new music out right now, because obviously artists make their money from touring, and if
Right.
they don't have a model to do that, are they sitting on a lot of great music that's going to flood once we're out of this? Or, how have you guys found it working with musicians on your end?
Yeah, a lot of one thing that really struck us is, I would say, and Bonnie can correct me, percentage wise, I would say probably 75% of the artists that we worked with had never done a live stream, right? And it was really interesting. At some we contacted, and they said not comfortable at all. But then some of those people 2 months later were like, okay, what do I have to do? So that was really interesting, because they want to create so badly and they want to connect, and nobody thought it was going to last this long. And yeah, it was really magical for us to see. Again, it's that whole mental health piece, to see how important, it's not just the audience that needed the music, and it wasn't just us who needed to do something and be creating, but those musicians who no longer had any outlet. I had so many of them say to me, thank you for giving me something to look forward to, something to work on. Sometimes they'd come up with a theme, maybe it was like oh yeah, wasn't it Randy? He did All Felonious Monk on vibes.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you, because one of our local guys, he plays piano, he plays vibes, and he plays bass, and everybody's doing solo performances unless they were like a couple. And so we got him to do a solo vibes performance. I mean, that was a challenge, right? And he did it, all monk tunes. It was fantastic.
We've had some really, really nice follow-up emails from artists, though.
Yeah, we need to compile those actually.
Yeah, it's that part was enlightening for me, maybe less for Juliet as a musician herself and as someone who has worked closely with musicians for so many years. But for me, that part was really an enlightening part of it for me, was to see how much it really meant to these artists to just connect with their audience, to just play music, to just be asked.
Right.
I mean, yeah, we've had great.
I'd add to that, just play with each other. In other words, they're all interconnected and friends and study together or play together, and just to be back in the same room or on the same stage or whatever.
Yeah.
I think the other point on the certainly the touring is all but obliterated right now, but I think there's a bolus in produced and newly released music, at least in the jazz side, internationally, North America wide, London, New York. I think these artists have had a few months now to use that time. Some have been able to use it to their advantage. Others have been more incapacitated by it, but those that have been able to press on and be creative are seeing some new projects just coming to light right now. Now, those are obviously being more streamed than toured, but nevertheless.
Yeah. I wondered the same thing, Dave, as what you asked about the movies in the movie theaters. Like, all of a sudden, is there going to be, because there haven't been very many new movies in months. Our theaters and drive-ins are open, but they're playing Goonies and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So I don't know what's happened to all the movies.
Apart, right?
Yeah.
6 feet apart movies.
At some point, there's going to be a lot of new movies to see, or they're just going to start allowing us to pay to see them in our homes, I guess. I don't know.
Well, they already do that, right? Cineplex, you can do that with. Anyways, that's getting off topic.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If there's nothing else, everyone, I think we can call this a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Put a bow.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for your presentation, your insight.
Thank you.
And don't forget that next week we have Thomas Cumberbatch going to be talking about branding in this day and age. So I hope you'll be able to join us. Thank you, everyone who joined us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Thanks, Juliet. Thanks, Bonnie.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.